This morning, police say the fires that tore through the towns of Talent and Phoenix, Oregon, destroying about 1,000 homes and killing 5 people, were intentionally started.
We were able to locate evidence and determine that this individual is likely the cause of the fire.
Michael Gerard Bakela was charged with 2 counts of arson and multiple counts of criminal mischief. That as 500,000 people, 10% of Oregon's population, are in evacuation zones. At least 2 fires have converged, creeping closer to Portland, whose mayor has declared an emergency. From space, nearly half the state buried under smoke. Flurries of ash came down on neighborhoods.
The air quality index around here has been measured at 3 times the level that is hazardous to breathe. It's been raining ash here for days. The air is so thick, you can barely see that church right down the street.
So many with nowhere to live. We met Emma and Libby Gillespie at a Red Cross shelter in Salem, Oregon.
We had a neighbor who called us kind of hysterically screaming and said, "Get out, you guys need to leave."
With the fires ripping through her town of Gates, the single mom scooped up her sister's children, their dogs, and fled into the night.
What did you take with you?
Nothing. I mean, I still have my swimsuit on. I had sat in the pool that day, you know.
You literally left in a swimsuit.
In a swimsuit, you know, the kids had their pajamas. Half of them didn't have shoes on. We just got in and left.
That as thousands clogged roads out of multiple fire zones, firefighters in ferocious battles to try to save homes.
And with our crane camera, I want to show you this world of pink laid down around me, and still it did nothing to stop the progress of that fire, which incinerated entire neighborhoods, entire developments here.
California's North Complex fire claiming at least 9 lives. 16 people are still missing.
The debate is over around climate change. Just come to the state of California. Observe it with your own eyes.
And back in Oregon, Emma and Libby got ready to pack up those dogs. They think their house is safe, but they don't know. The upheaval of COVID and the temporary homelessness because of these fires, almost too much.
Tearing up a little bit.
Yeah. It's her senior year. School is hard for her anyway because we haven't been able to start school, and now we can't start school, so it's been hard for these kids that have worked so hard on their senior year. They don't have anything.
Talent, Oregon is one of a handful of towns destroyed by wildfires raging throughout the western United States.
This could be the greatest loss of human lives and property due to wildfire in our state's history.
A 12-year-old boy and his grandmother died in Marion County.
We're going to see and continue to see a lot of devastation and loss of life.
In Washington, 1-year-old Uriel Highland died when the Cold Springs fire tore through Okanagan County.
It makes you think of, where would I be if this was my child?
In the eastern part of the state, a wildfire is estimated to have destroyed 80% of the town of Malden.
Everything that we own over the past 20 years, gone.
This is a look at the devastation left behind by the Creek Fire, one of dozens burning in California. Cressman's, a landmark in the Fresno County mountains since 1904, was reduced to rubble, and officials say more than 300 structures have been destroyed.
Rattled nerves,
Brenda Hampton lost her home in the 2018 Camp Fire that killed 85. She again had to evacuate as the deadly Bear Fire rages nearby.
I just want to know where the rest of my family is.
At least 3 people have died. Hampton is still waiting to hear from her sons. She and her granddaughter spent the night outside a Walmart, ash blowing through the car window.
I played in ash.
In San Francisco, a sign of the historic wildfire season with orange skies blanketing the city. Danya Backus, CBS News, Fresno County, California. More than 1 million acres in the West, ravaged and scorched. So far in a fire season that is not even half over, and taking a tragic toll, the magnitude of which is still unknown.
There are early reports from our state police that there are dozens of missing persons related to the fires.
Oregon's Governor Kate Brown is pointing to the towns called Talent and Phoenix, where searchers are looking for the missing. Smoke from Oregon's 3 major fires is unimaginably widespread. Its worst air quality in the world is choking the Pacific coastline, Seattle's skyline to the north, San Francisco more than 800 miles to the south, and then to Los Angeles. The scenes and sickening air underscore for many that the climate is in crisis. Washington's Governor Jay Inslee.
I think we have to start thinking there are more climate fires because that's what creates the conditions that makes them so explosive.
This is a climate damn emergency. This is real. And it's happening. This is the perfect storm.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom toured destruction north of Sacramento, where more than 250,000 acres burned in a national forest.
The reality here is the mega fires that we're experiencing come from these mega droughts that we've experienced.
People who did make it out have harrowing stories to tell.
8 of us had to go down to the end of our road, go into the sand and get down in the water to avoid the fire.
Denise Hendrickson left her home in Lake Oroville, California, an area now prone to fires.
I've survived 4 different fires up there until this one, and now I don't even know if my home is standing at this point.
But this man's house is gone again, 2 years after fire claimed his home in a community nearby.
It hurts more this time, I think, than last time, and getting things back together again and having to rebuild is rather devastating.
An inferno raging out of control tonight in California's Sierra National Forest. The 100-foot flames destroying homes, leaving a trail of destruction.
We are completely trapped.
And even trapping campers.
All the roads are burnt.
California's National Guard airlifting more than 200 people to safety from Mammoth Pool Reservoir. The dozens injured are recovering tonight. The creek fire they escaped from burning more than 46,000 acres so far.
The sheriff came and told us that we didn't have to evacuate, but he was advising we do because he didn't know if the fire would jump the road and we couldn't get out.
In San Diego, the Valley Fire tripling in size overnight, ripping through 4,000 acres, already burning 10 homes and threatening more.
We all have houses built after 2005. There's so much fuel at the base of that hill. I don't know if they'll weather the storm or not.
And 100 miles east of LA, the El Dorado fire exploding in size, scorching more than 3,000 acres, now burning in rugged terrain. California's wildfires are record-breaking and relentless. So far this year alone, the state has seen almost 2 million acres burned. A key driver, climate change, causing more frequent and longer-lasting infernos. Fire crews are stretched thin. The military has become a more common sight. And for those trapped by the increasingly erratic flames, backup arrived just before time ran out.
San Francisco at dawn Thursday, an ominous sign of what the day would bring. Fires chewing through hectare after hectare, pushed by fast-moving winds, devouring the dry land in its path and destroying everything. Entire towns gone.
A horror. Horrible.
Terrible.
Absolutely terrible. You don't know whether your home's going to be there when you get back. We have animals that we couldn't bring with us that are cows.
Hopefully we have a place to live, because if our stuff burns down, that's it. I mean, I'm on a fixed income.
Millions told to be ready to flee, some making the narrowest of escapes.
I thought I was going to die. There was fire 360 degrees around me.
Among the dead, 2 found in a car that didn't make it through the wall of flames in Oregon, and a 1-year-old baby boy in Washington state.
Now, to put this in perspective, in the last 3 days, we have lost more acreage to fires than in any single entire year in the history of the state of Washington, except 2015.
Leaders are warning residents the death toll will surely climb. There are almost 100 fires burning throughout the West, the vast majority of them uncontained and growing.
The fires that are going on in the western United States right now are unprecedented, even to our most senior leadership and senior, most tenured people on incident management teams in this country. We have not seen this before.
Tens of millions of people impacted, even those far away. In Los Angeles, the pollution level reached a high not seen in 26 years. And by all indications, all of it is just going to continue to get worse in the coming days. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera.
Well, Laura, for more on the serious situation that is unfolding in Oregon and the dangers that lie ahead for that state, let's bring in Matt Howard. He's the Deputy Incident Commander at the Oregon Department of Forestry Incident Management Team 2. So, Matt, can you give us a fill on what's the situation on the ground right now?
Yeah, you bet, Eric. Thank you. You know, we had an historic extreme wind event on September 7th that brought sustained east winds 20 to 25 miles per hour. Some gusts were up to 50 plus. Much of the state is in severe to extreme drought, and the moisture content in our live and dead fuels are critically low, which makes the fuels highly receptive to ignition. So that combination of critical weather conditions, the highly receptive fuel load, along with some extreme terrain influences, contribute to extreme fire behavior that makes it fighting fire incredibly resistant to control. You know, the first responders in Oregon were ready, but completely inundated with the sheer amount and magnitude of fire, along with the complicated conditions that come with fighting fire in the wildland-urban interface. So, you know, I'm here on the 242 fire in South Central Oregon. I'm the Deputy Incident Commander, along with Incident Commander Bill Hunt. The fire we're managing is 14,460 acres. 640 acres. We've got a little over 315 firefighters assigned. We're near the community of Chiloquin, Oregon. You know, and this fire is on the smaller side from what is going on the west side of the Cascades. But we've had thousands of citizens on evacuation orders for a few days. At our peak, we evacuated 315 homes. You know, some of the complexities that we're dealing with here and across the state, you know, we're near a major town, communication sites. We've got a large power distribution line that was compromised by the fire with several towers down. Numerous structures damaged or destroyed. We got a major highway infrastructure going through our fire, and also areas
Matt, how do you protect those? And do you think the state has enough manpower? And what do you need to finally get these wildfires under control?
You know, Eric, our priorities have been and continue to be life safety of the public and our firefighters. We're doing point protection on structures and trying to reestablish the power and the transportation infrastructure to keep us going. Right now, just with the sheer magnitude of fire on the landscape, there's, you know, I believe the first responders are, I know they're doing everything they can. We're just completely inundated with fire. The great thing that I see out of this is the state coming together. We've got first responders and people from all walks of life. Our logging industry is really stepping up to the plate with heavy equipment to help control these fires and establish some containment lines around homes and structures. Ultimately, with the amount of fire on the landscape, what we need is some rain. So if we can get some rain over this way over this next week, that's surely going to help. It's not going to put the fires out, but that'll get us a little bit of relief so we can start working on containing these fires.
Yeah, we saw meteorologist Adam Klotz a moment ago showed that there will be rain next week, but really on the western side of the state. Finally, Matt, you think, is that enough to try to start tamping this down? Some predictions say some of these fires will keep on burning and will burn right through the winter because it's such a massive amount of fire and blazes.
Yeah, you bet. I think these fires will continue to burn or have heat in them into the winter. You know, some of these fires have 190 miles of perimeter. So to physically put containment line around these, as many as we have, is a large feat. So, you know, we'll continue with point protection and life safety and securing these fires as best we can. And we will be working into our fall rains and into the winter season, there's no doubt. With just the firefighting and the recovery efforts afterwards are going to be as critical, if not more critical.
500,000 people face potential evacuation. There are fears it could even reach Portland. Matt, our hearts and thoughts are with you and the men and women who are on the front lines fighting these fires. Matt Howard with the Oregon Forestry Management. Thank you for joining us.
A new report from the World Wildlife Fund says that we may need to overhaul the way that we get food in order to save the planet. Ian Lee has more on their findings.
From the savannah to the sea, the world's wildlife is under threat. Everything from big game animals and birds to our favorite fish have had their populations decline nearly 70% in the past 50 years. The World Wildlife Fund released the report.
When we see this decline in wildlife, that we're really seeing an indicator of decline in the overall planet that we call home.
The organization monitored nearly 21,000 different species. It says the destruction of habitats, like rainforests, is one of the biggest culprits.
How we grow food around the world is the biggest driver of decline for terrestrial species that live in forests or grasslands.
Agriculture is to blame for up to 80% of the global deforestation. To help stop the trend, experts say we only need to look as far as our kitchen.
There are clearly decisions that each of us can make in terms of what we eat, what we buy, how we use energy, a lot of choices that we make that do ripple through the system.
By living a more sustainable life, we can preserve our natural wonders and the animals that live there for future generations. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
In Privacy Watch, the brain behind SpaceX and Tesla now wants to get inside your brain. Elon Musk's startup Neuralink hopes to one day implant chips in the human brain. Musk unveiled a prototype of the device last month. It's currently being tested in pigs. The goal is to help treat neural disorders. Some say that it could lead to our brains being linked straight up to the internet one day. For more on this, I'm joined by Dan Patterson. He's a senior producer at CNET. Dan, what is going on? Give us some background. How exactly do neural implants like this work?
Well, Lana, I left my PhD at home, and something tells me the science here is pretty crucial. However, what we've seen from Elon Musk is pretty ambitious. It is not the first time we've seen BCIs. These are brain-computer interfaces. In fact, there's kind of an interesting history around these computer and machine interface devices. But what Musk unveiled is this kind of quarter or silver dollar size device that sits on top of the brain. He described the process as fairly trivial, opening up the top of the skull and placing this on top of the brain. It uses this very thin lattice-like cables to connect and transmit. Now, we have seen similar devices in the past that are larger, more clunky, but also fairly capable. Some tests in the Department of Defense have shown that under computer simulations, people with similar implants have been able to control flight simulations of fighter planes. So the capabilities are pretty tremendous. However, let's not forget that this was a demonstration by Elon Musk, and he loves to look at the future, but often getting there has some challenges. So these brain-computer interface devices are not simple. They're not coming tomorrow. But they might be how you end up uploading your brain and your memories to the cloud.
Very interesting. And I don't know if you've been watching Upload, but it does sound a little bit like taking the current existing brain implants that doctors use to treat patients with Parkinson and epilepsy to a whole different level. So why is linking up our brains to computers something that Elon Musk is interested in?
Well, Musk does like to tackle really big challenges. But this is also something that was pretty hot, at least in the startup tech community, starting around 2016, 17, and 18. Now, look, artificial intelligence, AI, has gone through what they call AI winters, AI springs, and AI summers, where it kind of becomes trendy, and then we discover it's incredibly complex, and the cycle perpetuates. We saw something called stay with me on this, the simulation hypothesis, the idea that we are all living in a computer simulation. Musk talked about this pretty openly at the Code Conference in 2017. So it is, to answer your question, Musk is really into this as an idea because he likes to solve big ideas, but he's also into this because Silicon Valley really was hyped on this idea of artificial intelligence as kind of a silver bullet, or as they say with industry jargon, a black box. AI seems to be a fancy, cool problem that is just a few years off, but close enough it seems tantalizing, but not quite so close that we have to be accountable for some pretty hyperbolic claims.
Yeah, well, Musk does say that this device in the future could allow people to restore limb function, cure blindness, but then also even download their memories to robots. What kind of data does Neuralink have to actually back up these claims, or are they just really the dreams of somebody who is interested in the future and sees possibility around every corner?
These are the dreams of somebody who sees possibility in the future and dreams about a lot of big things. Look, if you'd like to learn more about what's called artificial superintelligence, I have a great book for you. It's called Superintelligence, written by Oxford scientist Nick Bostrom, where he talks about the practicality of kind of what Musk is seeking here. What Musk demonstrated was an implant running in a pig. He actually showed 3 different pigs, one that had the implant removed, he said safely, one that never had it, and one that currently had it. And he showed that this was indeed possible to monitor some of the brain activities. But look, the brain is incredibly complex. As soon as we solve the brain problem, let me know, because I have lots of things I'd like to figure out. It's not a problem we are going to uploading or downloading your brain is not a problem we are going to solve immediately. I kind of say in jest that this is a problem that is close enough that it seems tantalizing, but far enough away that we don't have to have consequences for this. There have been scientists and futurists predicting artificial intelligence and brain uploading and downloading for a long time. Again, the book is Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom, and it will explain in pretty human readable language the practicality of what kind of has been presented in this very science fiction-y type of demonstration.
In a major policy reversal, Bahrain has become the latest Arab nation to agree to establish relations with Israel, as announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday.
They will exchange embassies and ambassadors, begin direct flights between their countries, and launch cooperation initiatives across a broad range of sectors, including health, business, technology, education, security, and agriculture.
Bahrain is following in the footsteps of its neighbor, the United Arab Emirates, who is set to formally sign a deal with Israel on Tuesday. Until now, Israel had only struck 2 similar peace accords with Arab countries, Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994. The Israeli Prime Minister said there would be more Arab countries to follow suit.
זה עידן חדש של שלום. שלום תמורת שלום, כלכלה תמורת כלכלה. אנחנו השקענו בשלום במשך שנים ארוכות, עכשיו השלום ישקיע בנו, יביא להשקעות גדולות מאוד לכלכלת ישראל, וזה חשוב מאוד.
During his phone call with Trump and Netanyahu, Bahrain's king reiterated the need for peace in the Middle East by means of a 2-state solution, the kingdom's state news agency said. The Palestinians, who see Arab support as crucial to resisting Israeli occupation, slammed the move. Israel's archfoe Iran has also denounced the normalization. The Trump administration has made it a priority to apply crushing sanctions and diplomatic pressure on the Islamic Republic. But following Friday's announcement, Trump predicted there would be a very positive development in the standoff with Tehran.
Interview. Today we are in Sweden, in Stockholm, and our guest is Dr. Anders Tegnell. Hello. You are Sweden's chief epidemiologist. You are the architect of Sweden's very own, very specific approach to the COVID-19 crisis. The first question I'd like to ask you is, how is this strategy going at the moment?
I think at the moment we are very happy with the strategy. The number of cases has fallen in Sweden during the last couple of months. We're now down to very low levels. Lower levels than most countries in Europe actually right now. Our mortality has gone down to almost 0. We have very few cases in intensive care and almost no cases in our hospitals anymore. So right now we're quite happy and we are heading into the fall with some confidence.
So you say you're heading into the fall with some confidence. It's true that the figures of new cases per day are extremely low in the country, around a 20th of what we have in France, for example, or other European countries. Do you think that is something that is going to be sustained, that it is going to carry on like that?
I think we're reasonably confident that it can be sustained because we are building this on the same kind of strategy that we'll be using all through this pandemic, trying to get people to stay at home when they're sick, working from home as much as possible, keeping distance in the society. And that staying with the same strategy means that we can keep on having this strategy also through the fall. And since that strategy has served us reasonably well so far, we also think that it can serve us well during this fall.
The figures are around, 100, 120 new cases per day on average. We'd say it gets as low as 60 some days, as high as 180 some days. Do you think you're going to see the same figures, or do you think there might be a spike? Because we are seeing a spike in the southern Europe.
Yeah, I think what we are calculating is going to happen this fall is that we're going to have local outbreaks, like they've seen in Norway, like they've seen in Germany, and specific locations, special working places or something like that. That's what we are most concerned about, and that's what we are really building much of our preparedness to find those and to deal with those as quickly as possible.
Now, as you know, of course, the strategy here that you have implemented is very criticized because it is different from what's been done in other countries. You've not enforced a lockdown. You're not forcing people to wear masks on the streets, for example, as it is the case in other countries now and the rest of Europe. First of all, why did you choose this strategy? Can you explain it? Why not, choose to lock down or to wear the face masks?
Because this is very much in the strategy and in the tradition of the public health work, and that's why we started with this kind of voluntary strategy, giving a lot of influence to the population, giving them a lot of responsibility, the same way we do in many other areas, and which we know works quite well because there's a high level of confidence between the population and the agency. And since we started with that, we managed to keep the number of cases reasonably low all through. We managed to keep our healthcare system running with a high level of quality of care, and there was always free beds for any COVID-19 case in the hospitals. We never were really pressured to do a drastic thing like closing down society, especially since we know that closing down society will have a lot of negative effects on public health in many other areas, except for the COVID-19.
But this strategy has had a cost in human lives. I'm thinking of all the Swedes. I mean, you have pretty much, on average, around 10 times the mortality rates that your neighboring countries have had, Norway or Finland. And is this not due to this strategy?
No, there's not complete a connection to that, because, you can look at countries like Belgium, Netherlands and France, who have similar mortality rates compared to Sweden. Sweden had a very heavy epidemic very early on, much heavier than many of our neighboring countries, with a very heavy startup. So that, I think, influenced the spread in Sweden very much and made our pandemic look much more like the pandemic in the UK or in France and many other countries, and not comparable to Norway and Finland. Furthermore, we can tell that with the same strategy now, since the last 2 or 3 months, we see almost no cases in our elderly homes, and our mortality rate has been very low for several months already. So there is definitely not a close connection between the strategy and the mortality rate. This was very much due to a high level of mortality in our elderly homes, long-term care facilities, which had weaknesses, not everywhere, but in a number of places that made it possible for the disease to spread very much in those places. And we know from every country that if you get a high level of incidence of disease in those places, you get a high mortality because the people living there are the most likely to die from this disease.
But you did say, so for you there is no correlation between these high figures and the
I don't say there is no correlation at all, but I don't say that there is a clear correlation, because we have been able to run this strategy with a very low level of mortality and very low level of incidence in these long-term care facilities. So this was a weakness in the system of elderly care that was known to a certain extent, but the exact extent of it and how important it was not to have those kind of weaknesses during a COVID-19 outbreak was not known before. But we also know that in many other countries, UK, which I had several discussions with, have a similar experience, that long-term care facilities are very vulnerable to this disease, and the level of mortality and level of disease spread in those healthcare facilities will be very great.
Nothing has gone wrong. I mean, there are 5,800...
Yeah, of course something went wrong when 5,800 people died. That's definitely not something we expected, nothing we planned for, nothing we hoped for. So that's definitely gone wrong. But that does not mean that the strategy in itself has gone wrong.
As far as this strategy, it is different from the rest of the world. For example, face masks. For you, face masks don't need to be made mandatory in Sweden.
No, first of all, we don't use mandatory for many things in public health in Sweden, and still we have a very good...
But you don't even recommend them. You don't even recommend wearing face masks.
Right now, when we have the level of spread that we have in Sweden, with the spread even slowing down slightly, we don't see a reason to introduce more measures.